back in the media pit. Something new, something different. We maybe if you're hearing this and you're just hearing it the regular way, then it's nothing new, so you don't have to worry about it. But for those of you that are podcast curious, the hope is that this is also going to be on YouTube, and we're trying out doing this new recording method, throwing some video in there, possibly some video clips. If not, we'll at least have the audio ones from our interviews at Charm City. Yeah. Boedi, how's it going?
It's going great, Bill. I'm back home. I'm back in my media pit. I feel like we spent some time together in your media pit this weekend. You know, I was thinking also we're going to Trek, right? And that this next week, and that is where the term the media pit came from, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think we have possibly Ryan Bodge to thank for this, because on the media, didn't he, wasn't that the sign for the media room?
I feel like he came in and said it to us. Like, you are.
It was either that, or I almost think it was like a sign on the door. I don't know, but yeah, Trek definitely was the home or the creation of the media pit.
Anyway, so I stayed at Casa de Bill Scheiken this weekend during our work in Baltimore, and had a good time in DC and Baltimore, and but excited to be home for 3 nights and then back on to Trek. But yeah, this weekend, what a weekend, Bill.
Tell me what you thought. First time to Charm City, Druid Hill Park. Give me the first impressions.
All right, let's come in with the vibe check. I like to bring the vibe. Okay, you know what? It was awesome. I had a blast. It was really good. I think you had asked me actually which one was my favorite of what we've done so far, because it's been 3 new venues, and it's hard to pick. But I think that maybe Charm kind of has all the elements that I really like. You know, it's got this a great location. It's sort of the venue. The park is really cool. Once again, what you see on video does not do justice to what it is in life. Mansion Hill, that, if you saw the stories I posted, right? Like, it is crazy steep. And I've seen your guys' work before. Amazing photos, amazing videos you've done. Zach's done amazing photos. Like, you do, but just being there in person, it's bigger too. It's a lot bigger. It's more of a feature. The undulating hills that go from Mansion Hill down to the start finish. How start finish is sort of has a slight climb, has a downhill and a climb. It's twisty. Lots of little hills. The gully, as we called it, was a pretty unique feature. And then there's the people and the vibe and the staff. The people that I met that Chris Auer, Jay Lazar, I hope I'm saying that right, who put on the race, all the other folks. Super friendly, very much. You could tell they were good at what they do, and this sort of is something that they love to do. And we happened to be there for the 20th anniversary, and so there was a little bit of celebration on Saturday, and it was nice to hear sort of what everybody's sort of big upping each other about what they've done, and so a good sense of family there. And then we had just we had some really fun racing, and it was a venue that allowed me, as the guy who was trying to document it, see so much and you actually get so much footage, because it really works. And Bill, what you said, it's not shaped like an amphitheater, but it kind of works out in that way, and that you have a hill in the middle that can see sort of all sides of the venue. So a long way of saying Charm was awesome, had a great time. Folks, put it on your list.
Yeah, and so for me, and I've talked about this before, and when we're ranking the USCX venues, I'm always going to put Charm on the top, because it's in Baltimore, I'm in DC. It's kind of homecoming race for me. When I was racing bikes on a very low level, that was my favorite race, to do. And it was in our series and in our region. So still going back there, I'm still watching the Masters fields and seeing people that I raced against 10, 15 years ago, and they're still out there just crushing it, which makes me happy to see. So it's always something special for me to go to that race. And you mentioned the organization. I think what they all do is top notch. I mean, best in the country on how to put on a cyclocross race. And then you're right, you have the venue, which is just this iconic venue at this point. Chris Auer, when he was speaking at the end of the day, was like, we're a 20-year-old American race that makes us a classic, which I think is right. And yeah, you came in there and it's a lot of fencing. You're like, well, how am I going to get from here to there? And then I think it was one of the junior races that you were like, all right, well, let me, test out and see what I can do. And you were like, Bill, I think I have 10 clips and we're 2 minutes into the race. I mean, you could just like see everything and get everywhere so well. And then even you talk about something like Mansion Hill. Mansion Hill is the farthest point you can get from the start finish. It is like all the way out in the middle of, quote, nowhere as far as this venue goes. But you can stand near the second flyover, just go up that little hill. Mansion Hill is all the way down there, but it's just such a clear sight line and it's such a large feature that you can watch the race from there, still see exactly what's happening, still pick out who's who as they were making their way across that feature and then coming back towards you. So that's what makes it really, really good, because you can see them coming from one side. You can basically see 50% of the race, if not more, just standing in the field above the flyovers, and sort of like twisting around. And that's where we used to film when I did the one-person filming of all of Charm City. I was basically just hanging out on that hill most of the time. You got the iconic Scaffold Resource flyover, which just changes every year, which was always good to have there. And then you talked about that gully section that normally is like this just scorching fast, twisty turny area of the course, but this year we actually had some rain, not necessarily during the racing, but before, and that led to more difficult conditions. It led to having to run some of that, so that really added a new wrinkle into what is normally just like a speed trap in there. Was really slowed down and made it interesting.
Oh, that's interesting to hear, because that I thought it was such a technical section, especially with the weather. And one of the things I was editing the highlights for today for the women's race, and I was like, oh my God, this brings me back to Svennis, because I was watching Clauzel and Bacher take two different lines, low line, high line, into the very first turn into the sort of gully. And I was like, oh. And then there's this, you could sit in the middle of the gully and watch them come in, and you could kind of watch them come out. And both those sections, multiple riders were taking different lines. And it was a fascinating case study in cyclocross. And I was like, we have to get Bill to bring back Svennis or CX or CXs and O's, or maybe we'll do a little Instagram story take on it. But like, it was cool to see. And like the fact that the precipitation we had completely changed that feature is always, that's super fun. That's a great part of cross.
Yeah, I think you explained it better. I think saying scorching fast is probably the wrong way to describe it. It is the type of thing that you're absolutely right. But when it's dry, the people who have the better handling skills really can flow through there.
Yeah.
And those that don't are getting caught up on it. Where here it was more, are you going to dismount? Are you not? And it was I think it was more a risk than a reward situation for some of those ride versus run areas.
Yeah. I mean, the classic, you can ride it, but is it faster?
Yeah. Should we get into the racing?
Yeah. Let's get into the racing.
All right. Where do you want to start?
Well, let's start on day one.
Okay. That sounds like a good place to start.
Let's start day one. And let's start with a quote from Clauzel, who you quoted in your Substack, but she said, if you have 2 days of racing, it's good to have one day that's sunny, which I thought was, yeah, of course. Like, I mean, who doesn't like a little sun? So it was a little bit sort of foggy, overcast at the beginning of Saturday, but by the time the elites were racing, the sun had come out, but it was still wet. So it was super humid, very hot. And it wasn't like, there's a lot of talk about what were the conditions going to be, like what kind of mud were we going to have. And it was this kind of weird, we were discussing Saturday night, it was this sort of weird Goldilocks where, like, I talked to Katie Klaus after the race on Saturday. She's like, I only pitted once just to get a new clean bike, but I didn't need to get a clean bike. The mud was not sticking, it wasn't jamming up any of my stuff. Where earlier in the day, in the maybe the juniors and like the Cat 2-3 races, like they were pitting a lot and you could see a lot of jammed up derailleurs. So we had those conditions. So it was a lot of heat. The sun was out. I mean, I was running like a madman, sweating, dying per usual. And, you know, it was kind of, you know, it was same show as usual, right? Elaine at the front, Manon at the front. We had Magali and we had Sydney, right? And that was kind of the show. And then at some point, I think on Mansion Hill was sort of that was the sort of situation where I think Helene and Manon had a little more power, maybe a little bit more technical ability on that day, that they were opening gaps there. Because one thing to point out to folks who haven't been there is that Mansion Hill is a very steep like incline, but able to get to Mansion Hill, you are doing a sort of long drag. So your legs are a bit sapped before you even get there. And so you would see that group would come, like that front four would come to the bottom of the hill together. But when they were going up the punchy parts, that's where separation would happen.
Yeah, there are a lot of those punchy areas that I think Clauzel really took advantage of, because as we've seen over the last 3 rounds of the Trek USCX series, that's her strength. You know, she is really good. If it goes up a little bit, she's able just to punch through that and open up gaps. So you have that hill going up to Mansion Hill, and then you also have the incline really coming, or a couple inclines coming out of the gully section. And I think it was the one where you were standing to the one place that you could get the best reception when you were going live up on that hill. Coming up that stretch, I think you could see Clauzel. That was kind of her point, where she was like, this is where I can really get out of the saddle and put in a dig. And even if it wasn't a gap that stuck, it was something that everybody had to react to every race. And you saw the same thing in the men's race as well. It's one of those points where I don't think anybody thinks about it, but just when they're riding the course, they're like, oh, this is a play. This is like this sort of perfect power section. So if you want to hit it, this is where you're going to hit it. And I saw her do that a couple times, and Bakker having to really kind of not dig deep, but really put in an effort to reattach and get back to that wheel. And I think after 2 or 3 of those, that's when Clauzel was finally able to get some separation later in this race. And I think the other thing, just thinking about it, because one of the things that happens here is all these days kind of jumbled together. But on Saturday, I believe Sydney and Magali were up there in the beginning, but then it was really Katie Klaus who was up there as well with the leaders, and really was in the main chase group. And Caroline Mani, I think, was the one that we really should talk about a little bit, because she started a little farther back, but just kept working her way towards there, and by the end was up in that group too. Magali, that just, historically what we've seen with her, going all the way back to Rochester years ago, where she had a scary event in the heat, and I think she's been really conscious of that ever since. It got hot on Saturday afternoon, and I think that affected her a lot, and she really started to drop back in this race. So she wasn't with those leaders or even in that chase group by the last couple laps.
Yeah, she's not the only one. I mean, in the men's race, we saw there's a lot of jerseys unzipped on Saturday. A lot of people sort of going backwards after first few hot laps. But yeah, Caroline Mani started her race hot and got hotter, as in she kept driving during the race and got herself up to third, and had a little battle with Katie Klaus, who had a really good start, and who has we've been watching Katie Klaus, maybe not the ramp percentage she'd like, but just is race by race, we're seeing her sort of come back into that CX form, be at the front longer, be in it with the leaders longer. But eventually Caroline Mani, as my girlfriend says, has that dog in her. As a lot of people have been saying that Mani has a dog in her. And she kept fighting, and she was up there she eventually dispatched Klaus and took home. Well, she rounded out the podium, but I mean, how did the race play out the rest of it, Bill?
Well, it played out kind of how every other round is played out. Clauzel got a lead, and she just kind of stuck it on day one. we're kind of getting all of our stuff in here on day one. I think day two was probably the more exciting race to talk about. But let's hear from some of these folks. Let's start with Nani and listen to her. The one thing to note about her is that Carolyn's a hustler and always has been, and she's doing 100 things and is still able to race her bike as well. She'll talk about that in her interviews. And this was a day where what she's doing with her new project with Velo Mafia, running that and being a manager of that kind of ran into her race prep, and she was dealing with things, trying to make sure that she was running a professional operation on that front, and then also trying to prepare for a race. And she came in a little frustrated even at the beginning of the race, and I think that that little bit of heightened emotions kind of drove her through her race. But yeah, let's listen to Carolyn.
You came into this race at the beginning hot, and I mean like almost angry.
I was ready to kill someone.
How did that affect your racing?
Well, it is hard because it's like anything take like a lot of energy out of you, and I've learned with experience. Like, I apologize for coming so hot and so cranky, and just a lot of it's just I put a lot on my plate, and sometimes it's unmanageable, and today was unmanageable. So I haven't sit all day.
Just from that start, how did you make your way up to third? It looked like you did a pretty good job just working your way through the field.
I think it's just they failed. They just went backwards. I just went. I had one speed today. I mean, it's a good course for one speed because it's kind of weird. It's not really punchy. It's like there's not a lot of place where you can just punch, and then the stuff that is steep was my big chainring. I'm like hammering to get over it to not drop the small chainring. So I just stayed consistent and not panic. So yeah, and I was really struggling because I don't know what's going on, but I wasn't sure if I could race. I have a problem with my ankle. I could not walk this week, so.
All right, well, you got out
I
there.
made it work, so that's good.
Boedi, anything?
Yeah.
I think that's it.
All right, cool. We'll see you tomorrow.
And then I think, other than Carolyn, the interesting things, and we can contrast this with day two, Boedi talked about Clausel wanting a sunny day, at least one of the days. She got that on day one. But I think it was really Manna Backer that was a little more happy with the conditions out there. She would have wanted it to be even muddier and even nastier out there. But at least she was like, okay, this is a taste of it. And she was able to come around, get second place on the day. And, like we've heard us talk to her every week. Every week she's just kind of figuring out this type of cyclocross and what she needs to do. And I think her and her dad and her brother all are really starting to embrace the racing culture in the U.S., having a good time out there. She's stoked that everybody's cheering for her. I mean, surprised. She's like, why is everyone cheering for me?
Right.
And there's like, because we like seeing you out there. You got a lot of fans. But yeah, let's hear from her after day one.
All right, man. I know you wanted the rain and the mud, and it was here yesterday. It kind of dried up for your race, though. Still okay out there?
Yeah, it was still okay. I've been training every single day this week in the rain, thinking we'll get mud. And then practice, there was mud. I was so happy. And then the sun came out and we got a kind of mud, but still dry. I rode on Griffiths, so yeah, like a all-round stretch, but it was good.
I mean, as far as just kind of working into it, are you still, Clausel still ahead of you? But as far as the rest of the field, you're now getting that separation I think that you were hoping for.
Yeah, Clausel is really strong, especially on like the punchy parts. She could ride a climb where I had to run it, and she took a lot of time on it, and then I just overkicked myself going back every time, and yeah, I made stupid mistakes, but it was a fun race. Last 2 laps I really found myself again, so that was good.
So out of the courses, the tracks that you've done so far, do you find this more to your liking? Are you looking forward to tomorrow?
Yeah, I hope we'll get some rain and we'll even be better, because now the course is already like slippery, and if it gets a lot of rain, we'll get mud, like slippery mud. That's what I like the most. it's good. It's a good lap. I like it. I did like Rochester a lot too.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, that's a good one. Boedi, anything?
And what did you think about Mansion Hill? I know you were talking about, not enough technical bits, but that seemed like a pretty hard section. What were your thoughts on that one?
I think it was especially hard this time because it was so hot on that part. You went pretty slow and it was just only sun. So that made it extra hard. I didn't think it was that hard in practice actually because, it's better for me when the speed is slow and you only can ride in the saddle uphill instead of sprinting. So I thought it was actually fine during practice, but in the race it was really hard because of the heat.
Okay.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, Manon.
All right, that pretty much does it for day one. Clausel was able to take the win with ease. Bacher in second. Mani, who we heard from in third place. Katie Klaus, good race coming in there on fourth. McGill missed consistency in fifth place, and Rochette was behind Raylan Nuss in seventh place. Should we move on to day two? Little different conditions, Boedi.
Yeah, day two cooled off. The cloud was there in the morning. The clouds were there in the morning. It was misty and kind of the same thing as day one, but the sun just never came out and the conditions stayed the same. And I think a lot of folks were way happier about that. One of them being Magali Rochette, who had a bad day on the first day, overheated, but just these conditions were sort of more in her sandbox. And you could see it that she was at the front early, not going to be missing moves. In the mix. Day two was interesting. I mean, day two was a really good race in that we had a front group of four for quite a while. And then eventually we had a group of two for the entire race. Just a little bit of backstory on day two. On day one, we learned that we didn't have reception in Druid Hill Park. And that's kind of a part of the game of what we were doing with uploading the stories. I also realized when I was editing the highlights today that we had embarrassment of riches at Druid Hill Park and that I could see so much, that I could shoot so much, that it also was kind of cutting into my uploading time. So I established this routine at Grow Cross, and then the venues have changed. But we figured out a way to we kind of figured out a way to get it done for the women's race, but we made a decision to not post the men's race during, which really benefited the men's race because there was so much footage to get there. So there was so many areas I could shoot that I really got the men's race well. So I kind of felt like I did a bit of a disservice to the women's race, and I maybe missed some of the moves because I was waiting for upload. Anyway, that's a little bit of sort of behind the scenes what happened. But there was a lot of stuff going on in this women's race. And it was interesting because Helene didn't look as strong as she did on Saturday. I don't know exactly why that was, or just maybe day two thick legs, but Manon seemed like she was more sort of ready to go as well. And they were both pushing it and trying to, make it a tough race.
Yeah, I think the conditions definitely benefited Bacher. She was happy to see that it was a little messier with the rain overnight. And, you had features like Mansion Hill where she was able to ride the descent, the chewed up descent there, and Clausel behind her was running. So early on in this race, in the first couple laps, Bacher was able to use that to her advantage. If she hit Mansion Hill first, she could get a little gap at the bottom and started to ride away from Clausel. It's the first time that we've seen this in the series, and we're looking at that, Boedi, and we're like, oh, this is going to be the day. This is finally Bacher got these conditions that she's been waiting for all series long, and is she going to be able to extend this gap? And
well, I mean, that was the thing. So this is the exciting part about day two, is that we were seeing something we hadn't seen sort of really all series, all Trek USCX series, where Helene is pretty much at halfway through the race, she is off the front. She's gone solo. She's been the strongest rider in almost all the sections towards the end, right? She wears everybody else down. But this is the day where, like you said, Manon was getting gaps on sections, and Elaine was having to close them down. And then Elaine would get a bit of a gap. Like, I was up there seeing them red-faced, like pushing around Mansion Hill, and it was just like amazing how much they were like really going, how hard Monin was really going to stay with her. So they kind of did a back and forth. And to go back to sort of how we covered this race, it was so close that usually if you're taking photos of a bike race, the last lap, you most likely won't even shoot the last lap, because you will need to make your way back to the start finish to be able to get there for the finish line shot. When I was shooting the footage, I often had that same sort of mentality that and we have seen the races sort of been done. They've been settled before the last lap. This was not at all. This was still in the air midway through the lap. I was standing in the middle of the course watching them go up Mansion Hill the one last time. And there was at one point where Monin gets a small gap, and then on one feature, and then Helene claws it back. And then Helene gets a small gap. All this to say that we didn't know when they were coming to the finish line who was going to win. We actually couldn't see. And all I knew that they were very close together. And so it was an exciting moment, because when we heard Bill Ellison say, "And they're on the pavement together, and here they come." Bill, what happened at the finish line?
Yeah, so it was. We always talk about the sprints before the sprint, and Charm City, historically is no different. And here it was really, I think Bakker was saying, even again, pit 2 is where you want to be out front, and especially you had to get to the flyover, the second flyover. You had to be first on that flyover to win the race. It's basically flyover, straight, little bit of grass, and then straight to the transition, really dicey corner onto the finishing stretch. As Boedi said before, you go downhill for a little bit on the tarmac, and then it goes uphill, and it's a climb for the finish. And Bakker was first to the flyover. She was there, and Clauzel was about a bike length off, and they came down. Bakker was able to use that ramp to pick up speed, going straight into the finish. Clauzel's on her wheel. They sprint up to the top, and when they're getting there, they're both driving. We can go back to the old argument, Boedi. Bakker was on the tops. Clauzel was on the drops. They're 1 meter, 2 meters from the line, and Bakker went into her bike throw just possibly a little bit early. When we were running back the photos and Boedi's video, you could see Clauzel still driving through the finish line while Bakker is throwing her bike. And I really think her just continuing to pedal through the finish in the drops gave her the win by millimeters. I mean, it was so close when it got to it. But Clauzel was able to come around her and take the win to keep her streak alive in the series. And as you were saying, it really was a race that both of these riders were able to play to their strengths. And I think we talked to Clauzel. Let's hear her talk about that.
We got a hint of mud. I don't know if I would call it. Would you call this a mud race? Let's start there.
Yes, it was a mud race today. At the start, I was not really good, so I was on the front of the group. But at the end, I had a good shape, and I was with Manon, and it was too close, and she was really better on the technical part, and I was better during the physical part. So it was really close, and at the end, I win with a little millimeter. So I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, so it looked like on Mansion Hill that she was able to ride the descent, and you were running. Did you ever ride that, or were you just running the whole time? Because that's like where she was able to get a little bit of gap, and you had to catch up.
I ran always because it's for me it was. I don't know if it's better on the bike or if you're running, but I prefer to run. And Manon was on the bike, but I think it was the same if you pass on bike and if you pass on running. So I prefer to run, and I was always. If you are on the first position just before you finish on the first position. So yeah, it was okay.
This is a race, I've been to this race many of the 20 years that it's been going on. And winning a sprint coming from behind on that last stretch, you don't see very often.
Okay.
Yeah, so can you like walk me through, like even from the flyover or even those off cambers, where you were positioned and how you got around?
I was on the top of the, I don't know the name.
Yeah, it's sort of those off camber sections, or on the flyover, which...
Yep, I was on the second position.
Yeah.
Yes, I was on the second position, and yeah, I was second during all the finish line. But yeah, I think I have a better punch than Manon, so I make with that, and yeah, I won.
Excellent.
I'm good. I think we
Oh,
got
good. Congrats.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and then finally, Bacher again, disappointed that she got second place. Really thought this was going to be the one. This was going to be her first win in a Trek USCX series race. Disappointed about that, but really, I mean, honestly, Boedi happy about the progression that she's come. She was like fourth place, third place, second place. She thought today she was going to have the first place. And just missed it by just a bit. Similar to, she was talking about similar how she missed third place in Rochester in the sprint to McGill. But overall, pretty happy with the result. Pretty satisfied with it. And yeah, we talked about how being here and just the environment and the fans and everything, really sort of gave her those good vibes. And I think you can hear that in this interview with her.
These were your conditions today, yeah?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I was like riding different lines than everybody else. I could see the course, how to take a corner, the slippery part, doing the steep downhill on my bike. And yeah, I like those kind of races, the technical ones, the muddy ones.
It looked like more aggressive in the beginning, trying to get out there, get established, get a gap. It really just you and Eileen off the front pretty early in this one. I guess Sydney was there for a while, but yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I think we went at the second lap already. And then I got a gap, like 5-10 seconds on Helen, and I thought maybe this is the day, but then she came back and we kind of did like back and forth at the front, me at the front, trying to drop each other. And then in the last lap, we kind of knew where we wanted to be at the front, so we had a battle to get to the front. And then, yeah, I came out first in the corner and thinking this is the chance to get the first win, but yeah, she was too fast in the sprint.
Yeah, a couple centimeters.
Yeah, again.
Yeah.
Same as Rochester, but no,
Yeah.
it's fine.
All right, so yeah, you didn't get the 4-3-2-1. That's what
Yeah.
we're going for. But you're stuck at 2, which is fine. And now you have Wisconsin. It's a place you've raced at before, so you're familiar with that. What do you think about that track?
I really like it. It's different again because it's a little bit more technical and also fast. The barriers are on a good place for me, which is a lot of fun to finally, hopefully, jump in and get some advantage out of that. And then, yeah, it's a short sprint, so also better. The first one out of the corner will probably win, so we'll see.
You going to be doing any sprint intervals in the week now?
I think my trainer puts them in every single week, hoping to get it better, but I think I'm stuck with this.
Well, let me ask you, back to the race. You said, where was the point that you and Elaine were battling to? What was the last feature to get to?
There was like the big hill going up, and I think we both knew like I could ride it down. So if I was first in there, I could probably take a gap because she had to jump on her bike. So I think we both wanted to be at the front, and then I got second, and I was stuck behind. And then after the second pit, you had like a technical part to the finish into the bridge, and I was like, I want to be first. But she had the same idea, so that was the battle part.
We were talking earlier just about you coming to the States. Tell me why you decided to come race the USCX this year.
Actually, because I really like being in the US. I really like the people. I like the atmosphere. It's competitive in the race, but it's chilled outside of the race. And I wanted to have some extra races in before I start Euros, because you can probably tell I'm not the best rider in the first races, and I get better every weekend. So I want to be there in Euros when everybody starts. So this is an extra build-up.
Yeah.
And yeah, we were also talking about the friendly crowds. Like you had some fans out there. Tell us about how you were kind of surprised to hear people yell your name.
Yeah, it's weird and it's really fun, but yeah, this is the other side of the world and people are coming for me. It's weird, like I'm not much of a Vanderpool or something, and yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, I think one thing she sort of said after we stopped recording, which I thought was interesting and just kind of just came out naturally, was that, you know, she'd mentioned she was thinking that maybe this was the last trip to the United States, you know, she had planned this out and, you know, had been here before, but like there's a lot of cost involved in spending a month in the States and having her family with her and just a lot of expenses. But after Sunday, she was like, maybe we'll come back again. And yeah, we mentioned earlier, you know, her brother was like jokingly, we've developed a relationship. We've been talking to Arjan, sorry, buddy, Arjan. I'm probably not saying it right. But we've been chatting with him and Monen's father, who I unfortunately don't know his name yet. My apologies.
Can't mispronounce that one yet.
But what he was joking like, you know, you can interview my sister, but you have to there's a fee, and the fee is, he's like, how does she have fans? And I was like, well, because of the media pit, because of the bulletin, because as Bill said, you know, we don't have country allegiances. We know Monaghan's come over, and we're always excited when the Europeans do come over, and we like that they want to race in our country. And she's, you know, they thought that was interesting, and like I said, she sort of was, maybe she'll do it again. Yeah, I thought that was great.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing that we want the best in the world to come here and race. That there is nothing better for the development of American cyclocross than to have people who are faster than the racers that are here right now racing with them. That just brings up the level. That gives everyone something to strive for. That stops any complacency in racing, where you can just sort of lower the pace and not have to go as hard. Here you have to go hard, because you know Clauzel and Bacher are going to be going hard from the gun. So I think it's a great thing. You know, yeah, we want them to come over there. We want over here. We want everybody to feel at home. We're going to cheer for everyone, but at the same time, you know, it's a great opportunity for everybody else who's in the field as well. We talked about Magali, much better day on Saturday, much cooler temperatures. I think she's starting to come around. And Boedi, we got a CX Hairs Bulletin Wide Angle Podium Media Pit exclusive from Magali. So let's listen to her.
All right, so a little bit, not really a heavy mud course, but at least not dusty. So yeah. Looking forward to these conditions and the cooler weather.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was for me so much better than yesterday. I struggled. I mean, yesterday was just so freaking hot, but today was cool. Like little slippery and just kind of cool weather, and yeah, I loved it.
How did the race pan out for you?
I mean, I felt much better. I had some power, not like best Magali ever, but like decent enough to be in the race, to fight for position, to have fun out there. So pretty cool. I was trying to stay with the girls at the front, and I closed the gap a few times, but you know, it's like when you have been stronger, you're like, oh, I know I have to make this move. And I'm like trying to make the move, and it's like, oh, shit, I don't have the legs to make the move. So like a few times I got stuck in places where I'm like, oh shit, of course I'm getting gapped, but I just don't have the power. So yeah, I bridged a few times, and at some point I crashed, and I just couldn't get back. But.
So do you feel like now you're just starting to get that cross feeling back, and now you have to go away again?
What do you mean go away?
Where are we going to see you next?
No, you know what? I changed my plan. So after I'll say it, my shitty month, after this month, I was like, I just feel like I lost so much fitness. And at this point, I don't want a sucky season. Like, I want to be good, and I know that I need to get back that fitness, and I won't get it back by spreading myself thin, racing all kinds of disciplines, and traveling to Europe and back. Like, that's not how I'm going to get it. So I'll be in Wisconsin. I'm just focusing, like, no more gravel, back to cyclocross, just cyclocross and training and trying to get back to fitness. I want to be good for, like, my first World Cup.
Wide Angle Podium exclusive.
Yeah,
Staying
absolutely.
with Cross.
Yeah, and
Excellent.
I mean, I have to say, like, my sponsors have been awesome for that. Like, I emailed them, I was like, guys, I mean,
you won't believe what happened. It's like, it was just such a shit month, and I want to represent you well. So like, are you okay if I just focus on cross? And they're like, yeah, get healthy. Like, that's the main thing. We want you to be at your best. And so,
Well, that makes our day. That's exciting.
I mean,
That's
it
awesome
makes
to
my
hear.
day too. So I'm
Good.
stoked on that.
Awesome.
Yeah. So see you next week.
Yeah.
Great. So we were filming the battle for third, you and McGill.
Yeah.
At one point, you had gapped her. Just tell me how that race played out between you guys for the battle for third.
So you know that move that I had been wanting to make? I finally was able to make it with Sid. I mean, you had to like get to the, how do you call it, Mansion Hill?
Mansion Hill. Yep.
So you had to get there like first, you know, because it's so easy to get gapped over there. And so I kind of attacked as much as I could before that and got a little bit of a gap. Like I could see when it was time to run up that I had a few meters. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna punch it here as much as I can. And actually, like, I kind of messed up going down the hill. Like, I slid up it was bad, but I think she messed up too, so it was fine. From there, I just kept the pedal, like, kind of power down, and yeah, that's how I got it.
Awesome. I'm nervous we're going to get run over, so we should probably get out of the course.
See, and that's why you subscribe to the bulletin to the Wide Angle Podium, because we bring you this news.
Yeah, so pretty stoked to have Magli in Wisconsin and really sticking with cyclocross for the season. So it's going to be fun watching her progress, and I'm positive get back to that level that we're used to seeing her. Sidney McGill, 4th place on the day. Katie Klaus came in 5th. Great race for Lauren Zerner up there in 6th place. Anything else on the women, or should we move over to the men's race?
Let's go to the men.
All right, day one. Day one was the anticipation was out there, Boedi, because we had a national champion in the house. Finally, we finally got one.
Does Drew Hill have a song about anticipation? I feel like every like R&B group has like a good anticipation song. So anyway, you can drop that in now. But yeah, right. The big story is who is the guy in the white kit that kind of looked like the Cervelo Orange Living kit, maybe the Comp Edge white kit, but it had some different designs. The Pan Am champ, Eric Bruner, was there. Kind of forgot he was the Pan Am champ. I've been wanting to see the national champs kit, and the UCI rule says he has to wear the Pan Am shit.
Yeah, the Continental Championship takes precedence over the national championship. So you just had to go with the national championship helmet.
I think I feel like there should be some sort of rule where it's a 2-day weekend of races. You get
here's the thing: is that up until a few years ago, and maybe this is still it was up to the Continental Federation to decide if you had to wear the Continental Championship over the national championship. Like Europe says, yes, absolutely, you have to do it. But I'm still not sure that our federation, our Continental Federation, has ever said anything. I don't know if Capacci has ever said that you have to wear the Pan Am kit over your national kit. I have to go dive into the rules on that again. Regardless, Pan American champion and national champion Eric Bruner was there, and this was the test we were waiting for. We had Eric Strohmeyer, who had run the table so far in the USCX, 4 races. Oh, spoiler, 4 races in a row to this point.
They've watched the stories. They know.
Yeah, and just for this race coming into it, it was another race where Strohmeyer wanted to get out fast to get the whole shot, but not necessarily stay away. He was able to establish a gap early, but then Bruner was right there with him. Closed the gap and was able to get on his wheel, I believe, along with Funston. Funston was up there too, day one.
Yeah, Funston's up there. Yeah, I mean, Stroh really hit the go button early. You see it, and he from the gun, he's going for the whole shot, and he's hitting it hard. I mean, I gotta think you just kind of want to say, Bruner, what you got? Like, you're gonna skip some of the races. You got some other things to do. I'm gonna show you what we've been doing while you've been gone. Stroh goes early. He gets a gap. We missed this coverage, but it's out there on the internet. I believe Biker James has it. There is talk about being in the right place at the right time. Because at some point, Strohmeyer comes by me and he's got mud on his pants, and I have no idea why. Early on, Strohmeyer goes down in Club Row, slides out, and taking those turns too hot with the slippery conditions. But he slides out, and Brunner comes back, and now I feel like a sort of group coalesces. Then sort of like a larger group at the front.
Well, at that point, Brunner's able to go by and get in front of Strohmeyer. So then Strohmeyer is chasing for a while, and then he gets back on there. And really, it's the two of them that are racing together on the front. And the last, maybe about halfway through the race, and then, we were talking about the heat, and I think that was what Brunner really started to contend with as this race went on, is that I think during the men's race it was probably the hottest of the day. Yeah, that was when it all sort of came together, and eventually Strohmeyer was able to kind of wear him down, and Brunner had to drop back, and then even like Scott Funston sort of working his way through the group, trying to get back to those top three, and is sort of charging down on Brunner by the time we get to the end. But yeah, kind of spoiled it with the 5 in a row at the beginning of our talk here. But day one really looked like all the other rounds of the USCX so far. Strohmeyer, after that first mishap, was able to reestablish himself at the front and go in for, comparatively speaking, pretty easy win on the day.
Yeah, I mean, seeing Brunner kind of go backwards sort of in the middle of the race. I mean, maybe not backwards, but like Scott Funston was charging at a pretty steady pace, and there's one point where he comes up to Brunner and on one of the climbs of the match hill and just kind of like punches it, and just like you can see, maybe Brunner was looking at his gears to make sure he's in the right gears, but he looked down, like, that look you give to your legs, like, do we got anything left? Is there, like, just like, oh God, this again. And it was really like, okay, like, is that it? Like, has Strohmeyer just blown past everyone else, including our national and Pan Am champ? And Funston he made his way to second, and just, it's kind of like really interesting to have that resolution come to all this anticipation.
Yeah, but I think it was also, there was some reasons for it that we learned after. So let's listen to Eric Brunner.
All right, back to cyclocross. I know you've been doing some local stuff. Back to UCI cyclocross. Really hot, really humid. Shock to the system?
Very much so. Very much so. It's been very long since I've been at sea level and in this humidity and heat. So
yeah.
I'm not happy with today, but can't say I'm too surprised. I think I did what I could.
Talk me through it. Just coming in, starting in there, like, what's the body feeling like? What's the plan? Knowing where you're at and seeing what Strohmeyer's been doing out there.
Yeah, I knew Strohmeyer was going to be good. Didn't have too much of a plan because I didn't really know what to expect. I did expect to feel a little better, to be honest, but looking back, I had a lot of training and then a very aggressive taper, and like, you know me, like, I often do better on day 2, so I think I needed that one to get the legs going.
Yeah, and you've also given everybody 3 weeks a head start just to be racing at this level and then to jump in. So
totally. I mean, if I look back, like, I think in the last 3 years I've had like one good first weekend, and I wouldn't even really count that because it was last year and I had done a different race the weekend before. It just wasn't a cross race, so
the narrative
it's pretty typical for me.
The
honestly,
narrative is not as good as if you come in there, multi-time national champion, just win the first time. That's not as much fun. Now we got a story.
Well, I have a lot of respect for these guys, and like, yeah, now I have some expectation. I know what it takes, so
yeah. Well,
it doesn't make it any easier,
We're looking forward to tomorrow.
Yeah, me too. I think the legs should come around a little bit.
Awesome. Thanks.
Well, let me ask one thing.
Yeah.
Anything different for tomorrow in terms of preparation or race strategy?
I probably could have ate and drank a little bit more. In terms of the actual race, no. But that's the big thing. It's just been sweating so much. It's so humid here, so I think just try and stay on the hydration. It's a big thing.
One more. How was it with the new team?
Oh, they're great. I love Comp Edge, and Grant came over. Mia's riding for Comp Edge, my former teammate, and I've known Tyler for quite a while. Really great group of people, so I'm loving it.
Final last question. You and Funston with a little battle out there.
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't too much of a battle. I was ahead, and then he just came past me. So good to see him have a good ride. He's a good friend of mine.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah.
And then you alluded to it, but the other fun story from day one really was Scott Funston working his way through the field and eventually finishing second place. And, we've talked to Scott a lot, and I think one of the things that he keeps bringing up, which I think is true, that he takes a lot of pride in, is that he feels like he's the most consistent person out there. Lap over lap, he's riding the most consistent. I think that bore out, and in this race, as we'll hear from him, he was just able to go his pace, see the riders in front of him. He had Tobin out there who was doing all right. He was able to pick him off. Kerry was able to pick him off. Actually got up to Brunner, and Brunner had flown by him early in the race, and he just did the same to him. So yeah, let's listen to Funston on his day on day one.
I guess first off, former teammate in there was up ahead of you for a while, and Brunner. Was that any kind of incentive in this race?
It was an incentive for like a lap. Honestly, I was just I think the second lap I came in the off camber, went in front of Tobin, had a few bike links. Oh, I better keep on the pedals. Oh, I'm behind Kerry. Okay. Next lap, do the same thing to Kerry. Oh, I better keep on the pedals. Oh, Eric's not that far in front of me. I just kind of rode, and all of a sudden he was there. And I was like, I caught him and then did the same thing to him. And then I was like, well, I'll just keep riding.
That's what he said. I was like, so was it a battle with Funston? He was like, oh, not much of a battle. He just kind of rode by me.
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed myself today. It was proper out there. It was a lot of pedaling, and then stay on your bike and do the thing. It wasn't muddy, but it was on the tires we were running. It was challenging.
So the whole happy fun ball conceit from last year was really born out of you just chaotic starts, just getting out there and just making everybody work in the beginning. It seems like a little more reserved maybe today.
My whole system's off, Bill. I switched crank lengths, I switched pedals, I switched shoes. I had 10,000 reps on the old setup, and this new one, I switched drivetrains, so different gearing, different chain ring. Every variable I could have changed, I did change. So I got to do my reps. I botched it. I put my toe spike in the pedal or something. It took me 4 revolutions to get in, and then I was trying to pass people, but also I was just I didn't want to just go crazy hard, and I don't know, it was kind of letting Strohmeyer go, but also I was just I don't want to blow up again.
Yeah, but also doing some system testing out there and still finishing second. Not too bad.
Yeah, no, it was a great day. I think it was a super strong day. I was looking at lap times. I think I lost maybe 5 seconds to Strohmeyer between laps 3 and 6 or something, or 8. I was turning him, and I remember seeing he'd be basically the same spot every lap. He maybe had a little more in the tank, but I kind of feel like every week at GoCross he could do whatever. Last week it looked like he could do whatever, but I covered the first attack both days. Both days he made an attack and I covered. It was the second or third attack that he got. Today he got away early, but then I held it, so it's still September.
Yep. All right, so whole shot tomorrow.
Sure.
All right, cool. We'll talk then. Boedi, got anything?
Yeah. So we were talking earlier, and you'd mentioned that you were riding Mansion Hill better. Tell me about why that was and what you were doing up there.
Honestly, can't tell you. I have a guess at what I was doing. I don't know exactly. I think I was starting further right. I was going super slow down the hill, turning and going to the right fence post so I could come across more. And then a few laps, I got that rut and I pedaled the whole way across. It only happened a few times, but those times were really fast. So I think that was pretty critical.
Mid-Atlantic no more? Are we to that point with those ruts?
Namur's challenging because of the downhill. Like, you're controlling. This is like you're building speed. But it's got some similarities, and
That's a great distinction, though.
yeah. And the hardest part is the remount. I guess I could have played with the dirty side, but I will put this in. I do want to put this in there that I am a little disappointed that they didn't let us pre-ride. They just opened the course before the women's, and we have 2 mechanics for 2 female riders, 2 male riders. So me and Jules do not ride the course before the women's race because our mechanics are focusing on the women, and they don't have time to go clean our bikes and stuff. So I'm a little disappointed. Like, that's something that would never happen in Europe, that you can't ride the most technical feature before the race. So I was going in completely blind. I literally just sat here at the tent and watched people ride it from a quarter mile away. Like, I don't know, I guess I'll get on my bike and hopefully I make the right-hand turn at the bottom. Like, that was genuinely a thing. So just a little bit of professionalism of note to the organizers and maybe the UCI.
Awesome. Thank you.
I got one more. Sorry, Bill.
Yep.
What's the difference between, last week fighting that group, there's a big group, like 6 or 7 you guys going for like third, and today where you were sort of riding by yourself and riding through people?
It's just way better. I'm good with like 2 or 3. I love duking it out with like 2 or 3 people, but anyone more than that, I don't like it. I'm not like a road racer and all the tactics and stuff. Like, I don't know, I just like to go hard and like have the course separate stuff out. And also today, like, it's less punch. It was brah, like not so much pop, which we'll see how Eric, I don't know. I feel like that you can't get a longer straightaway than that up the Mansion Hill. So, and Eric struggled today, so we'll see if he gets it back together tomorrow. I'm sure he will eventually, but we'll see about tomorrow.
And then, the winner of the race, I think we've heard what he says after the win, so we'll just save his interview until we talk about day 2. Spoiler, didn't win that one. But the one thing that I was trying to pick his brain on that he was just not biting, because he was like, everybody's asking me the same question, is like, any pressure to keep this streak alive? You just won 5 in a row. We're talking to Strohmeyer, like, is there any pressure to keep this streak alive? And he's like, no, it doesn't. It's nice, but it doesn't really mean anything, and it was kind of interesting because, and maybe it's just in the moment, but I just, and I told him this, I remember talking to Jeremy Powers, I remember talking to Stephen Hyde when they were just like reeling off the same kind of streaks, 4, 5, 6 in a row. And I know Powers, and he was up to like 10, 11 races in a row. And he was like, yeah, the game then just becomes, you're not worried about preparing for Europe, not worrying about anything else. All you have to worry about is getting that next win. And that's all it is. That's all you're thinking about all week long, or at least for him, that's all it was. But Strohmeyer, just not the same mindset. I think he's still looking at racing hard, progressing, looking towards the next race, and just continuing to get better. We talk about that day, that Sunday.
Talk about game day.
All right.
Kind of started off similar to day 1.
Yeah, I mean, if I hadn't already blown the reveal on this, which I'm sure you all already know, you get to the race, and within the first 2 laps, Strohmeyer's out there hot and going, and you're like, okay, he was able to do what he did every other race. He hung out for not very long, and then he just took off. And then again, it looked like our national championship from Louisville last year. We had Brunner with him, we had Funston with him. Those 3 were able to work their way off of the front and really close elbow to elbow racing for those first couple laps. And then Strohmeyer was able to stretch it out and get a lead, and he was up, I think he might have been up like 20 seconds at one point. It was really out there, and then it just started coming back. And you look at the lap times, and his are getting longer, and behind him Brunner's are getting faster. And that just, after a while, you just sort of saw the writing on the wall, Boedi.
Yeah, that was really interesting because he gets his gap, and yeah, I thought it was over. I was like, all right, I think I even said to you, I was like, oh, race is over. And I was like, okay, well, this changes sort of my coverage. Let me look for stories in the sort of the farther down in the field. There was a good battle between Kerry and Marcus and Dylan. And I'm like, let me get some cool shots. But all of a sudden, I'm standing in the bottom of Mansion Hill, and I'm like, oh, here comes Stroh, and then here comes Brunner's right there. And I was like, wait, what happened? Did he fall? Did he like have a mechanical? I mean, what happened to Strohmeyer?
He had nothing left. That's what he said. He just like the power just stopped. And it is, if you go look at the bulletin for day 2, I have the lap report out there, and it's, it tells the story. We could just stop talking and you can look at this. You look at laps 1 through 4, and Strohmeyer is crushing everyone. He's got the fastest lap of the day on lap 3. He put 14 seconds into Brunner. The next lap, he puts another 7 seconds into Brunner. And then the lap, so he's like 7:38, Brunner 7:45. Next lap, Strohmeyer 7:53, and Brunner 7:35. Brunner never went harder. He was just consistent. Like, he didn't all of a sudden just drop down and put in one of these blistering laps. All of his laps, like, he started, like, his fastest lap was lap 2. And then he was even able just to, like, chill out on lap 8, the final lap. But so he was consistent, and the wheels just fell off for Strohmeyer. He's putting in close to 8-minute laps for the rest of the race, to the point that Scott Funston behind him sees that carrot dangle in there in the last lap, and all of a sudden it was like, got a chance to beat Strohmeyer, got a chance to get second, maybe even, see where Brunner is up the road, and he just like gets the bit between the teeth and just starts to go, to the point that after Brunner crosses the line, takes the win with ease by 20 seconds, Strohmeyer has to dig a lot deeper than I think he wanted to, just to beat Funston to the line to get second.
First half of that race looked like all the other races that we've seen you in this season, then it seemed to turn a bit.
Yeah, it felt like every other race this season. The first couple laps, everything was going normal, and Eric was riding a lot stronger today, and yeah, I was trying to ride on his wheel for a little bit, and we were going really hard on the power sections, and then I was able to ride the technical sections a little better, so I just, decided to go ahead and, be able to ride my own pace, and got a 20-second gap. I was like, all right, time to just go into time trial mode again and hold it, and then, I don't know if it was lap 4, 3, I have no idea, but yeah, after the Mansion Hill section, I just hit a wall and everything just left. No power, nothing. So then it was just, okay, trying to hold on to what I have and make the best of it.
Yeah, it was kind of like triage, and then you had Funston coming up as well on the back. It looked like you had to probably put in a bigger effort than you wanted to on that last lap.
Yeah, he caught me on the last lap, and he blew by me on the hill, which I knew was going to happen. I didn't have anything left, and then he made some mistakes on the off camber and the corner down when you come back down the hill, and I noticed that, and I'm like, all right, well, if he's making these mistakes, I'm gonna get in front of him, and if I can make it to the top of this hill, then I can hold on a little bit longer. And I was just able to ride the technical sections clean and get little gaps that he would close down, but he never was able to come in front of me. And I know I can always sprint, so as much as I didn't want to sprint, I was like, I made it this far, I got to do it.
So, you were mentioning before we started that a lot of people were coming up to you and asking about the streak that you had, and you, yesterday when we talked, we were like, it really doesn't mean that much. It's just taking every race as it is. But now that it's done, anything change, or just business as usual next week?
No, it's just business as normal. Whether I kept the streak or didn't, it is what it is. Like, nothing different has happened. So yesterday was the race I really wanted to win this weekend, and I was able to do that. And today was just, didn't quite have it, but it's all right. Show up next weekend. It's a new race, so yeah.
You can't be too disappointed. Still on the podium, still second place.
No, it's still a 2, so still happy with that.
Yeah, once again, fun atmosphere at the finish line when we have, and Brunner's always takes the win. We know that's done. We can't see 2 and 3 come around. Once again, relying on Bill to give us the audio, and it's another 2-up sprint, and it's exciting to watch. And this one has seemed like not as close, right? Bill, you've got the photos. You actually had the photos of both sprints. In fact, we didn't touch on this, but you revealed the winner to Elaine after, and you showed her parents who were there too, which was a cool little moment. But yeah, Strohmeyer got it, but Funston, good push to sort of like almost claw back that second place. Yeah, I think I didn't know the lap time thing. I didn't realize that Brunner's times were consistent. We talked to Stroh after, and had a bad day. Just had a bad day. Just had bad legs. And the question I wanted to ask, and the question you kind of asked, is like, why? I'm like, I want to know why. Was it different? Did he eat a different dinner the night before? Was the breakfast a bit dinner? I mean, I get it. Sometimes the legs are good. Sometimes the legs are bad. Look at Brunner. He came back a lot better on day 2. But good insight, though, Bill, that it was consistent Brunner and a falling Strohmeyer.
Yeah, and that's the thing where I don't know that Andrew knows what happened, because it's not like he got to the line and was like, uh-oh. It was 30 minutes into the race, 35 minutes into the race, and then it just fell apart for the last 3 laps. But yeah, you're right. And the one thing that, Brunner's a champion. Brunner thinks like a champion. The one thing that he told us after day 1, where he thought he was going to feel better than he did, was that he was like, hey, I'm usually a day 2 racer. I like racing on day 2. And it basically was prescient in that. He did much better on day 2 and was able to take the win. And it's nice to get that one under the belt. And let's hear from our national champ, Eric Brunner.
All right, so from what I've been led to understand, you're a pretty good day 2 racer.
That's what I like to think, yeah. Felt a little bit better today.
Yeah, so in the beginning, just from the outside looking inside the tape, it didn't really look that way. Let a gap go. What changed?
Yeah, I still didn't feel great on the first lap was okay. Laps 2 and 3 were really tough, and I was hurting a bit more than I expected on the Mansion climb. It just took me a bit to get going. Strohmeyer hit it really hard.
And then after that, it looked like you really smoothed out that section. It looks like, you were getting an advantage on there when you were in the lead.
Really? It seemed like I knew I was pulling it back. I didn't really know where. It took me probably a lap and a half to kind of recover. I felt like I really redlined after Strohmeyer went, and then I felt good and was just able to kind of ride hard the rest of the race and didn't have to let up so much.
Yeah, just looking at other skills that I know you've always had, but it seems like you've definitely been working on. Riding those barriers was super smooth. Is that something that you've been concentrating on?
Yeah, thank you. I've been riding my cross bike more this summer. Well, and I've been riding it just as a gravel bike as well. I think it was really helpful to ride the exact same bike most all of the time, and whether that's on the road or doing actual cross skills. So it's helped a lot.
So after you had those hard laps, did it just kind of like kick in and go, oh yeah, this is what it feels like to race and have fun out there?
Yeah, like yesterday I kind of felt like my body and then mind went into panic mode, and today was a little bit of that, but I was able to pull it back quickly and actually ride into it, unlike yesterday.
Feel nice winning a race again?
Oh, it's the best.
Last lap, you had a bobble on Mansion Hill. What happened there? Or you fell?
Yeah, I did fall. I was struggling to clip in a little bit. I was just a little off balance, and I think I came down maybe a little faster, and then I hit the brakes hard and just washed out. But thankfully just got up. The bike's fine. So.
Yeah, last note, in the beginning, it was fun to just, from our perspective, it was fun to see you and Scotty and Andrew up there fighting it out. Reminded us of nationals again, and having you back in this now is, I think going to be great, not only for the series, but also just to bring up the competition of everyone at that front, which is great. We need people banging each other's heads in.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. Those guys are riding super well. I think it's probably the best field we've had since I've been an elite, so it's really cool to see.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you in Wisconsin next week.
No, going to McGill's wedding.
Okay, all right. I guess that's okay.
Okay. Well, I
But
don't know.
yeah, I mean, you can tell he wasn't a full-time crosser to put his wedding at cross season.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to get him to come back, so hopefully next season, and I think since he'll be in my next one.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you out there. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
One thing I thought was really interesting, and I've talked a bit about this before with the women's race, was seeing the different lines the riders took. And for the life of me, I can't figure out if it was day 1 or day 2 of the men's race. But I think it was day 2 because I put myself in different positions. So at going up to Mansion Hill on day 2, you sort of go up the steep part, you kind of make a left-hand turn, and then you make a 180 right, sort of onto the off-camber. Really interesting situation. Standing there at that corner is watching how the riders took that line. There was sort of a rut in the middle of the top part. And so how you got to that rut kind of told a story about maybe the type of bike racer you were, just kind of where your skills were. And Strohmeyer comes up the hill really fast, and he goes as high as possible on the top ridge and slides down, slots right into the rut, and kind of kicks from there. Kerry Werner, same thing. Kind of makes sense. They're really good bike handlers. Eric Brunner and I can't remember, maybe it was Funston, both came in a lot lower and sort of like, and took a totally different line, a lot lower, and kind of tried to slot in the rut like at its level. And just super in the weeds, cross geek stuff. Day 2, check out the men's highlights. A lot of long shots, kind of almost like live coverage. And it's just, it just really just kind of worked out that angle I had to really show this element. And if I just go watch it again, because it fascinated me. Got a couple comments about it as well. And just wanted to point that out because that was a really enjoyable thing.
Yeah, so a good day for Brunner. You know, we also talked about, I noticed just his skills that he'd been working on, really smooth riding the plank, something that I don't think we had seen as much from him in the past. You know, and in that interview, he talks about just spending so much more time on his cyclocross bike, which, again, just this, in the same way that we were talking about liking to have more Europeans over there, we want the fast people in cyclocross to be racing cyclocross, and that's what helps all of the other people trying to get faster. Having the Bruners, having the Strohmeyers, having the Funstons out there, Kerry Werner still crushing out there, having all of these guys out there and racing. Same thing on the women's side, only makes everyone else better. If we have any of those gravel folks still, you know, that have moved over, this is the time. This is the time to come back to cyclocross. Anything else we need to talk about with Charm City, or even looking forward to Trek next week and the end of the series?
I don't think so. I mean, I think, yeah, it was another good weekend. Once again, chatting with lots of people who are enjoying the podcast, the Wide Angle Podium Instagram content. So it's good. It's good to hear that. We like the feedback. It makes it worth it, because sometimes you don't know, what you're doing if it matters. And once again, having a community that we can engage with about cross is the funnest part. So definitely looking forward to come out to Trek. Bill, we're trying some new things. Even we got some toys.
Yeah. So this is, talk about where your Wide Angle Podium and Bulletin subscription funds go to. One of the things it's going to, we hopefully by tomorrow will be getting the Starlink unit in here. So Boedi's workflow that I think benefited him by being able to just compile all of these clips, and it was great. I was driving back home. It's about a 45-minute drive home, and Boedi was just like uploading clips like on the ride home. So I think we may be going back to a more in the moment workflow. So you're gonna have to at Trek because we should have much better connectivity. So yeah, our goal again was to try to, again, not replicate the live stream. We're never going to be able to do that, but at least if you're at home trying to follow along live with the races, which we know is important, and we know it's something that people want to do, we're trying to give that experience through the Wide Angle Podium Instagram feed, and Boedi has been just crushing that. And if you like that, well, if you didn't know we were doing that, follow Wide Angle Podium, and will be coming in live a couple times and also doing the stories. And B, if you were watching it, tell your friends, share it. Let's get that audience up.
Yeah, I think we're posting reels. I'm posting some reels of the highlights. Share the reel. Put in your story. That's a good way to get folks to follow us and find us, because I know you can't share the stories. But we're going to have all the races. All the races are pinned in the Wide Angle Podium profile this week. They will come down when we start Trek. So, yeah, share a reel. Tell your friends. See you guys out there.
Yeah, last thing, cxhairsdistro.com/race calendar. Yeah, you get your shirts. But if you go, just go to cxhairsdistro.com, and if you click on the calendar button that's up there on the top right, the grassroots national calendar that we have been putting together is now up there. I'm looking at it now. Couple of features that people wanted. One, it wasn't populating to today's date. It is now doing that. And two, we got Canadian races in there also. The Dieppe Cycling Center Tuesday Night Cyclocross Series, Cycling Canada, right there. Register October 1st and directions. It's all up on the site along with everything else. You can filter by region and state and series. Get at it. Use that calendar. It's in beta right now. If you see some issues, see some features that you want added, you can hit that contact button at cxhairsdistro.com. If you see that your race series or race is not on there, also hit the contact. I'll send you the link to the spreadsheet, and then you can fill in your races as well. We're trying to not replace Bike Reg, but complement it, because all of the links are going to go to that registration page, but some of these races aren't even on Bike Reg, so you might miss them. And it's also something that instead of all of the amazing races that they have over there, this is just cyclocross. So hopefully it's a good tool where you can find out what races are in your area, or if you're traveling to another area, you can find out those races too. And I think that's it. I think we did all of the plugs for all of our stuff, Boedi.
Yeah, you could buy a shirt, right, Bill? Are there any more shirts?
You can still buy a shirt, too. Yeah, go to the shop and get a Wout shirt. I think Bruce Buckley was sporting the Wout shirt, and he was like, yeah, people were asking me where they can get it. And I was like, it was a limited run. I was like, Bruce, they're still out there.
Still looking for a bucket hat.
Yeah, no bucket hats on the shop, so you're gonna have to get with Boedi on that one. All right, we'll see you. What? You don't want me to end?
Say your T-shirt thing again.
Say my T-shirt thing again.
I stepped on your line.
Oh,
so
I can't even remember. All right, I think that does it. How many times are we gonna do this?
1,000,000 times. Goodbye.
Bye.